Hey, Teen Summers Tribe, Jim and Jamie back again with another episode. We're in 2024. Holy cow.
Jesse's our first one of
First
2024.
guest of 2024.
Jesse LeBeau.
Jesse LeBeau is here. And Jesse, good to have you.
Yay, man, that sounds crazy. 2024. Who thought we'd be here, huh?
Right? Yeah, it's been a couple of long years, but I'm looking forward to this year. And I think this is a good interview to start with because we were reading up on some of your experience, and I wanted to hear a little bit about your underdog story.
Yeah,
Love a good
definitely.
underdog
We
story.
do. We
Good
like that.
I
resurrection
I
story.
think it's the oldest story, it's the best story, and I think almost any person I've found can relate to being an underdog, whether they come from a really affluent background, there's something in their personality, they have a speech impediment, they feel like they don't fit in, whatever it is, almost every person feels like an underdog. So I love that you guys are a fan of that too, because I am as well. So for me, I just was born and grew up on a little island in Alaska. It's called Penick Island. I'm sure neither of you have heard of it before. Have you heard of Penick Island?
Whereas I've been to the Kodiak Islands with our oldest son fishing, but not sure
Oh,
where.
see, now that's a lot bigger island. This one's about half a mile wide and maybe three-quarters of a mile long. No
Wow.
roads, no stores, no, cars or anything like that, just wild animals. And every day, me and my family had to take a boat across to town just to get to school or for my parents to get to work. So, and that was considered the big city for us. And it was one road going left, one road going right, four stoplights, 15 miles of road, and a fence on either end. You were trapped there. There was nowhere to go, nothing to do. So for all those reasons, it was like just a small isolated place. But then it also was dark the majority of the year. So you'd go to school, it'd be dark. You
Wow.
get out of school, it'd be dark. So a lot of depression and other factors that come, addictions and that kind of thing, just not seeing the sun. And it rained 2 out of every 3 days. So we called it liquid sunshine in our little town. And there was just a lot of problems with drugs, alcohol. And my thing was that I felt like I didn't have the opportunity to go and do what I wanted to do. And ever since I was little, there was only one thing that I wanted, and that was to be a basketball player. I wanted to go and play in the NBA and make a living playing basketball. And the other factor that I didn't have working in my favor is that I was by far the smallest kid. So I was smaller than everyone in my grade, usually everyone in the grade below me, and including all the girls. So when I would go share this basketball dream I had, people would just shoot me down. You're not big enough, you're not strong enough, you're not good enough. We're from this little island. This isn't going to happen. And so I had this one bully experience with this kid, Stormin Norman. I went up to get this rebound. He just snatched the ball away. He didn't even have to jump. He was huge. And and I remember in that moment, he looked down at me and I looked up at him and he goes, "What are you going to be when you grow up? A pony rider?" And I had no idea what it meant, but by the way he was saying it, I was like, I know he's being mean here. And so I kind of got some distance from him. I got away and I realized he was saying I was so little, I was so puny, I was so scrawny that I wasn't going to be big enough to be a horse jockey when I grew up, who are the smallest people in the world, right?
Yeah.
So I had this moment of I realized I could go two ways. I could listen to these people like Storm and Norman who are telling me that I couldn't do what I wanted to do with my life, or I could say, the heck with that. I'm going to create the life that I want to live. And it was really this moment where I decided to take control and power over my own life and my own attitude. And that one little decision completely changed the direction of my life forever. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to be good at this basketball thing. And I'd get up early and I'd go across in the dark in that boat and I'd go up to the school and I'd practice hour after hour. I got my 10,000 hours in and I went on to have a good basketball career in high school. And then I got to have a college career and get my education paid for. And then go figure after that, I got to break into entertainment because I could do tricks like a Harlem Globetrotter. And so I started doing commercials with Kobe Bryant was my first one, and then a movie with Kevin Durant. And I traveled all over the world and got to be teammates with one of my idols growing up, Allen Iverson, and make a living playing basketball. So I got to do all these really cool things, and it was all through basketball, the thing I was told my whole life I wasn't supposed to be able to do. So that
Well,
that's
come
uh
on.
that's my underdog story in a nutshell. In
No,
record
I
time.
want to unpack that a little bit. So you went from Storm and Norman basically telling you to sit down and stop what you're doing. But what was so was it the the consistency, if the practice was what, because I have another good friend that, what really drove you in the right direction? What do you think got you over the edge? Like, is there something, because there's lots of parents out there probably listening going, my kid wants to do this, or I have something that I want to do to pursue that, and I'm feeling like I got some storm and Normans around me. Like, what was it
Yeah.
there? I want to
Yeah.
unpack.
That's great. I think really what it is I found my thing and I found my tribe of people, which was the group of people that were into basketball in my little community. Some teammates, some older people that could beat the heck out of me on the basketball court because they were bigger and stronger and adults. And that's one thing that I found working with parents is sometimes we project what we want our kids to be, like following in our footsteps or having their own thing. And it's not really the kid who wants it. I wanted it so bad. It wasn't my parents' dream, it was my dream. And because of that, it wasn't really work. And I'm so grateful I grew up in the time that I did. There was less distractions, especially there. But today with, our phones and social media, it's really easy for kids to get distracted. That's why putting systems in place that are going to limit the amount of time they spend on those things will make all the difference. But for me, I would go up later in life against kids who had the best trainers in California and their parents spent thousands and thousands of dollars working with them. But when it came down to that basketball's over there, it's a loose ball and it's me going against that ball and you going for that ball. I was going to get it because it wasn't my mom or dad who was doing it for me. It was me and my own desire and my own hunger. So I think in that situation, to answer your question, it's finding that thing that you're passionate about, finding that thing that you believe in, and then putting in those hours, but doing it in a way that's making it fun. And if you're a parent, having your kid try different things. So, like I said, a lot of times it's like, hey, I was the good baseball star, or I was the smart, 4.0 student. My kid needs to be that. Well, that might not be their thing. So have them try a variety of different things and find their things and also center a community around it because so many kids today are lonely. We've never been more connected with social media and the internet. Yet there's never been more people suffering from loneliness. It's a total epidemic that I'm seeing with the kids that we work with. And all those mental health issues from anxiety and stress and depression, they haven't have found their community, their tribe, their people that they can do life with, that they can actually spend time with in person, not through a screen, not through a phone, but in person and develop social skills, build confidence, and have amazing relationships. So that would be my long answer for your question there, Jim.
That's
Great
great.
answer.
And now, Jesse, what are some things that your parents did right, to support this and really dump gasoline on your fire? And if there's anything you can think of that your parents could have done better, I love to hear, these little tidbits that you might be able to
Yeah,
share.
yeah, I love it. So I'll give you one for each. So my dad, and it's so funny, and this is something with the kids that we work with now, is like, you think your parents just have it all figured out. You think they aren't even real people. I realized around 24 years old that my mom was her own person, more than just a mom, and she had her own dreams and desires, and she sacrificed so much of that for me to have my best shot to live my best life. So that was a big realization for me. And a great thing that my dad did was I was so into sports, baseball, soccer, basketball, is he went and he said, all right, we're gonna go watch the older kids play. So we go to the little league field and we would watch not what they did when they hit the home run or made the great play, but what did they do when things didn't go their way, when they struck out, when they made an error? Did they cuss out the umpire? Did they throw their bat? Did they not hustle out and high five their teammate? And we did that in all the sports. And he'd always say, that's the difference between a winner and a loser. And that's how this attitude is everything has stuck with me and has been my, big motto for life is we can't always control what happens to us, but we can always control how we choose to respond with our attitude. And that keeps you from being a victim and it keeps you from just blaming your outside circumstances to how can I take control of my life? And it was a awesome lesson I learned through sports that helped me in the most important game, which is life. So that would be a great one for my dad. My mom, it's just consistently showing up, consistently being there, even when it wasn't always easy. And after college basketball, I finished. I had no idea what I was going to do. I hadn't done a commercial or a movie or anything yet. And I was actually out on a fishing boat in the middle of the ocean there in Alaska. And I was a horrible fisherman. The captain hated me. He'd yell, cuss, and scream at me. And I wrote down on my 3x5 card my goals. And I wrote, I want to be in a commercial, I want to be in a movie, I want to be in a TV show. And they found the list of goals on this little 3x5 card. They made fun of me mercilessly.
Mhm.
They weren't nice about it. And it was literally the Storm and Norman moment, but all over again as a little bit older and having an adult do it to me. And again, that one little choice put me in a different direction. And I remember I had a conversation with my mom and I said, I can go and sell carpet in Orange County and make 80K a year. I can go to Hungary and play basketball professionally there, but make like barely any money and be the only American on the team that speaks the language. Or I can go to LA to Hollywood and try to be in these commercials. And my mom goes, every time you talk about these commercials, your eyes light up, you get excited, you've saved money working on this fishing boat, go do it. And if you don't make it, you could come back and you can live on the couch here, or you can have your old room back. And that gave me the confidence and belief in myself of like, hey, if I go and I fail and I fall on my face and I lose all my money, I still can come back and have a roof over my head and my mom and my dad won't disown me. So that was a really powerful thing. And I really don't think I'd be in the position I am today if my mom hadn't had that little pep talk with me. So it was a really powerful moment in our relationship and in my life.
Yeah, that's super cool. And that's something we tell our kids too, our young adults, I guess, is that fail now, like try all the things while you live at home. And if you're gone, we have one kind of teetering on that. He's saved, he's buying a home kind of thing. And we always remind him like, hey, you will always have a place to come back to. And we do really encourage them like try all the crazy things now because we're still this bed is still yours, And I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
probably really empowering. It's great to hear,
Well, and kudos to your parents
Right.
for
Yeah.
all. And it's one thing to say you're going to support it, but then to actually say, because if
true.
said, well, why don't you go sell the carpet? That would have been clear that, well, you're not really supporting
Yeah,
it then.
true.
And, you
Yeah.
know, I think, and this is a message, and I'm really glad you're saying, because we try to hammer this home at different events we teach at, different retreats, that if you choose your child's path, be prepared to carry it. Like if you were
Mhm.
like, well, we're in Alaska. Jesse, you're going to be a fisherman.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Like they would have been kicking you and screaming you. You would have ran out of steam. There wouldn't have been those extra hours before school, after school. It's because you chose it.
Yeah.
That's what we try to remember. We try to say to our kids, don't worry. Because well, what do you think? What do you want to see me do? I'm like, don't worry what I want. Don't put that on me. What do you want? That's where the creative abilities come in. That's where the true gifts come out that I can't necessarily see. So what do you want? Don't worry about what we want. And kudos
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
parents for really living that out.
I love that. I love that you guys do that and support them in that way so that it's uniquely their own, right? And so it's not just something, well, because so many people live their life not wanting to disappoint their parents or their significant other. And that thing you said earlier, Jamie, about failing. Hey, it's okay to fail. Failing is a part of life. In fact, the more you fail, I'll argue, the more you're going to be successful. And so many kids today are paralyzed because they're so worried about what everyone else thinks about them, especially in the teen years. I think we still do it as adults. That's why people drive cars they drive, wear the watches they wear, date the people they date. But at that age, to have this freeing feeling of like, wait, yeah, everyone is going to fail in life, and that's just part of life. And if you aren't failing, then you aren't probably trying too hard for anything. And so I love so much that you guys are doing that because kids today, especially with social media, and it's like, oh, this is out there, and they're comparing themselves to other people's highlight reels who seem to have these perfect lives and are better looking and more successful and come from better families. It's like, well, that's not the case. And guess what? You got to start somewhere. And it's probably going to start with lots of failing in a row until you get a little win. And then that little win's like, okay, hey, I made the basketball team. All right, well, what if I could start? And what if I could become an all conference player, an all state player? But you got to start with just trying out for the team. And you might fail at that. So that's so awesome. I really like that you guys are teaching that at your events that you're doing.
Well, it sounds like you're teaching it too now. And how did that go? How did you go from basketball to big
Yeah.
event speaking with young people?
You,
I had no plans of doing what I'm doing now. So I'll tour around and speak full time all year. We have a basketball tour bus, so we pull up and we have the basketball hoop we put down on the back, music, and have a great time at these schools and conferences and all of that. But what happened was when I was traveling on that team with Allen Iverson, they would line up for hours afterwards to come take a picture and talk to you, mostly because Allen Iverson was there, but we got some of that spillover effect, right? And it was really cool, no matter where I was, what country, if they spoke the same language, it was this kids wanted some attention and they wanted like a role model or a mentor that they could just talk to. And a lot of them didn't have that at home. And so we went and did an event back in my hometown, back in Little Ketchikan, Alaska. And the same thing happened. They lined up afterwards out the door. And in this situation, I knew a lot of their families. I knew their older brothers and sisters. I'd gone to school with them, or I knew their parents and went to church with them. And so it hit me in such a just transformative way of like, I'm meant to do something bigger than just dribble a basketball and entertain people for an hour. And I wrote down in my notes on the flight home, I remember I want to write a book. I want to start speaking. I want to share my story to impact other people's lives. And the cool thing is, I get to use basketball still every day, right at the center of it. I'll go out in front of a school and they're expecting some older guy to come out and say, don't do drugs. And I come out to whatever the most popular song is at the time, and I'm doing basketball tricks and I'm throwing out t-shirts. And now I have their ear and their attention. And hopefully some of them will connect with the underdog story and some of the themes that we've talked about today on the podcast. So I think it's an amazing calling that I never planned for. I still get to tweak my dream and use basketball, which I have been, so passionate and excited about my whole life. But I think I'm ultimately more fulfilled than I would have been working for somebody as an NBA player. Not to say that I would turn that down. If you came knocking today, I'd run for it because I could lift up what I'm doing now on a higher level. But yeah, it was from going back to my hometown and having that light bulb moment of like, oh, I could do something here that's bigger than myself that would still include my passion of basketball to help other people.
That's great. And now, what are some things that you're seeing children struggling with? I know you come as an inspiration and a hope to these children that are struggling, but what are some of the big things that you're seeing that we can help parents identify or just give a little nudge
Yeah.
to?
Yeah. So, man, it is tough to be a kid today. It's tough to be a parent today. It's just tough to be a person, I think, in a lot of ways. And one of the biggest things that's been on my heart the last couple of weeks is kids' relationship with their phone. Literally just got off a parent call right before this, and kids, it is changing their behavior towards their parents and their ability to regulate their emotions. A lot of anger when it comes to video games and the phones. And I truly believe from all the research and all the data that if you don't put systems in place to say, all right, here's what you're allowed to do on your phone, here's how much time you're allowed to do it, then you're going to completely be consumed and the phone's going to be in charge and not you. And that goes for adults too. One of the best things in my personal life that I made a few years back was I unfollowed everyone and I'm not on there. Well, got people posting some things for me to bring stuff for the brand and that kind of thing, but I'm not in there consuming it because no person that I've met up to now has this self-control and discipline to not get caught in those loops of just scrolling and seeing what's going on. And I as a full-grown man, was comparing myself like, why did this guy get 1 million followers so fast and get that TV show deal that I was supposed to get? I'm more talented and worked harder and better looking or whatever the things that you're telling yourself are. And if I can't do that as a grown man, how is a teenager whose brain is
Teenager.
still
Yeah.
developing able to do that? So the phone, if you're a parent, get a system in place, have the conversation with your kid, watch the social network, and you'll see the people who design these things who are making $1 trillion off of it don't let their kids use it. So that should be a big people. So that would be a big one. And the second one I kind of touched on earlier is really this concept of connecting with people in person. It's awesome that we could connect on Zoom right now. This is amazing. But us in that room would have been more powerful. I would have been able to give you a hug and a fist bump. We would have been able to just connect on a deeper level. And so many kids today are lonely because they're not having that personal connection with their tribe of people, where they can learn what's a joke and what's to be offended by, where they can build up confidence, where they can have a good time and feel safe and have a sense of belonging for something bigger than themselves. So if you're a parent and your kid is struggling, if they're withdrawn, they're in the room, on the phone, on the computer all the time, they have friends who you're like, have you ever actually met these people? The people I was just talking to, it's someone in the Philippines that's a 35-year-old man pretending to be a kid, right? So
Exactly.
these scary situations like that, get them out connecting, whether it's a sport, whether it's the cheer team, whether it's the chess club, whether it's the church group, it doesn't matter. Volunteering, get them with a group of people that they enjoy being around, because the quality of our life comes back to the quality of our relationships. Things are going good, great. You could celebrate and spend those successes and those wins together. And if things are going bad, you guys can be there for each other and help each other. That's what life is all about. And we've really missed out on that since the iPhone and the different social media apps have came out a few years back.
For sure. Oh, along with the pandemic, right? Like creating such a,
Yeah,
I think
huge.
youth groups have never recovered after that. Like I think like some crazy
Yeah,
amount of kids left the church and never came back, which is
yeah,
super. Um, what
agreed.
happens? Do you ever speak to, and this, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, but what if your tribe as a young person, what if your tribe is trying to hold you back? Did you have any of that? You were from this small area, like, Jesse, who are you to be famous? Jesse, who are you to whatever? Like,
Go to LA.
Yeah.
did you have some of that? And what do you do? Like, that's hard. Jim and I even face that stuff, like, because we came from adversity or like different paths, and to think like, there's definitely some people being like, wait, what is she talking about? So I always wonder, how do you guide young people in that?
That's always a funny one to balance too, because people will be like, my haters, this or that. And you go and look and they have 3 followers, and it's like, who are you talking about? Who's hating on you? Maybe you just suck. Like maybe it's not them. Maybe you're just not a nice person. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of take it on a case by case basis. But yes, 100%. That little 3x5 card I told you guys about, and
Uh,
the guy literally came in, he read it out loud. They laughed at me. And this guy who had been sleeping in a little bunk right next to me for the last 3 months, I love him to death, so I don't mind saying his name. His name is Dan the man. And he goes, and he's older than me too. So he goes, oh, you're going to move to Hollywood and be an actor. How original. He literally said it just like that, word for word. That's what he said. And
Mm.
yeah, that's a big part of life, is knowing who to listen to and who not to listen to. So we talk about, we call it our winner's circle. Who are you going to let in your winner's circle? Because just as important as letting in the right people, the people that you can look up to, that mentor you, that are going to build you up and encourage you, is getting rid of the people and subtracting the people who are doing the opposite, right? And the tough thing to what you said is sometimes those people might be your own family, or they might be the kid that is been your best friend since you were 8 years old. And it isn't necessarily because they're jealous. It isn't necessarily because they have bad intentions. I'll argue oftentimes it's the parent who loves you so much, they want you to go sell carpet for 80K a year, because they know you're going to have some security, some stability, and you're a lot less likely to fail at that than you are going for this random dream of doing basketball commercials. So it is coming from a place of love, but it's kind of a place of fear and wanting the best for you. So you have to make that determination your own, of like, okay, how bad do I want this, and what am I willing to sacrifice for that? And do I care what these other people think about me? So yeah, if there's people that aren't on the same page, doesn't mean they're not good people. They just don't share your vision and your dream for what you have. And you can still have them in your life, but maybe just have it a little bit less. If there's someone that's, related to you and has the same blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you use a little bit, Jesse, as fuel in the tank? I know for me, sometimes those were fuel in the tank when the butcher would try to tell me how to bake bread. That's what I always say. Someone who seems so, positioned for authority, but had knew nothing about basketball or what I did in real estate. And they gave this really this very elaborate reason of why it won't work. I always saw that as good motivation. And then you almost think,
You
and I'll
need
be
to
honest,
prove them wrong, you
I
mean?
must to prove them wrong, say no, thanks for the fuel. And there was always the part that's saying, I'm going to go back and say that. I never did that on some of the ones. I almost, which I'm proud of, I had humility, but it was tempting. And like I always know, I don't know if you know the story about the guy who started FedEx. It was actually a business project in college, and he was this big reporter. And he did this business project, and the professor flunked him. He said, "This is a horrible idea," and he flunked him.
Yeah.
He left college, started it, and I think it was something every year for the next 30 years, he would send the annual company annual report on FedEx and just say, "Thank you for the inspiration, sincerely, that." And I thought that was kind of it's keeping your chin up, but I wonder if you had any of that with what you've done, or if you said, "Hey, I know you gave me a hard time, but could I help you with something?" Or how have you kind of reacted to the fisherman?
Yeah, that's a funny one. So, I actually heard one the other day about Steve Harvey. Somebody told him he'd never be on TV, and then every year at Christmas he sends that guy a TV. Like he sends him a whole TV just to remind him, hey,
Which is
not
kind
only
of
did I make it,
humorous.
but here's a little
That's
something
not
for you.
that's
Yeah.
not malicious. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I would love to say that my motivation came from wanting to prove the people supporting me right, but it absolutely 100%. I was very motivated by the people that told me that I couldn't do it, or people that were better than me at the time, and I wanted to be better than them at basketball. I think it's definitely a healthy thing to have a little bit of competitiveness and to be like, oh, okay, you don't necessarily have to react and send them your balance sheet or a TV on the other side of the rainbow when you make it. But I do think you will be more fulfilled when you learn to like, I'm doing this now for me because I want this for my own life. Do I still have a little chip on my shoulder for things and that drives me? 100%. But I don't really do it publicly because I don't want them to know that they're consuming any of my energy. But it's like, oh, I remember when that guy tried to screw me over in that deal, and now I'm kind of overtaking the market share. Oh, that's interesting now. He has to pay attention to me. Um, and as far as the captain, I've seen him since. And actually what happened was there was an email that was leaked that he wrote to the group of fishermen because there was like a fleet, and he didn't know that one of the guys in there like loves me and my family, and so he didn't even know that this guy was talking smack really, but he basically saw the commercial, this one I did with Kobe Bryant, the first big one during the Lakers game. It played all the time, like everyone saw it, and I put on his shoes and I get like his powers and I'm dunking and doing all these like superhero type stuff. It was the dream commercial. And he wrote in an email thread to the group and said, oh, how cute, or like how adorable, or something like just condescending. And so I was like, oh, interesting. And it couldn't be happy for me. And then I've seen him a few times since in the grocery stores when I go back home, and I just smile and I just kind of like laugh it in my head. And I just am nice and I don't say anything about it. I like his family a lot too. So I run into his daughter and wife. And I just always am really nice, but I know it wasn't anything deeply rooted in evil person, but it was something like, why would you say that to someone that wants to go for something? All right, well, I'm going to go for it, and then
Well,
for it to go right, it's like, well, maybe thank you, but
that's kind of what I was getting at too, Jesse, because I
yeah,
always like to ask, because you start to develop a little bit of compassion. I have that competitive edge, and I'm grateful for the people that were the naysayers, because they did put a fuel in the tank that the believers couldn't completely fulfill, to be honest, like you said.
yeah.
But you start to wonder when I see people that were kind of haters like that and then continued to be, did he ever want to be a fisherman? Is there something that he really wanted to go for and then he was discouraged about and he stayed in the box?
Yeah.
And that's where I start to go back to.
You tend to trigger people with the things that they wish they were,
Yeah.
You're 100% right. And what in hindsight, as I looked back at that later on in life and had a little bit more life experience, they always called me like college boy. And it was very always went out of their way to make me feel as dumb as possible because I didn't know the knots and how to sew up web when it would get ripped. And I've never said this publicly before, but I'll put a little button on the end to make it sound real but better. Is that he, I don't think, went to college. And so the fact that I went to college, it was like kind of threatening, but I could never do what they do. Those guys are incredible, the fishermen. Like they have a skill set that I just do not have. And
Yeah.
and so it's like I admire what they do, but it was maybe like a little bit of threatened, like, oh, you went to college, you think you're smarter than us. I was like, I know I'm not. But that was part of, I think, where some of that was coming from. Like you said, a place of like, oh, I could have done that or wish I would have done something else. But those guys are I think they're like a last of kind of a special breed of guys up there in Alaska that make a living like
Yeah.
that.
I agree.
They're tough. And our oldest son, so you know, is a professional fisherman.
He's a charter
So I
fisherman.
just,
Oh,
so, and we told him, I did the opposite. What do you love? What are you naturally good at? What does the
yeah.
world need? What do you enjoy? And he's great at this. And he has his own charter fishing business at 20 here
Wow.
in Florida, and he's doing great. And I couldn't be happier for him. But I could never do what he does. I
No.
like
Yeah.
fishing, but I'd screw up the knots. I wouldn't find the spots. I wouldn't know how to handle certain things, you
Yeah.
know. And I
Yeah.
have such an admiration. So it's I
That's
can
amazing.
agree with you 100% on that. Let
I
me
love
ask,
it.
um, where can
Where can we learn more
parents,
about
yeah,
you?
where can they learn more about
Yeah. Yeah, so
parents?
there's a lot going on. So we have a Facebook group that's a big community of parents. We have I go and do talks 3 or 4 times a month all over the country. We have a teen program where we work with parents and their kids. We have a school program. So we put it all on one page just to make it easy for whatever people are looking for if they want to join the community. And it's the attitudeadvantage.com/welcome. So the attitudeadvantage.com/welcome, pretty much everything they could want or not want is there. And that's the best place to go.
Okay.
Perfect.
And you're also on, I found you on Instagram, so I know that you've got,
Perfect.
although
I'm on
you
there.
personally are not on Instagram.
Yeah,
I
I
just,
see it. I see it for about 15 minutes a day.
okay,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm pretty much the same. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, Jamie,
I get,
she's when you say no one can, she has definitely been the most disciplined about take it or leave it I've ever seen. I can't be that disciplined. She
Ugh,
can. I'm pretty
it's
I just
hard.
get
ambitious.
It's
on the
hard.
people type girl. I'm like, yay for you. I get excited for other people, then I'm like, all right, we're good.
Yep. Yeah. Get me out of here. Well, it's tough. I mean, I was making fun of my friends for TikTok, and then they're like, when you go on those reels on Instagram, it's literally the same thing as
The
TikTok,
same
just 2 weeks later. It's just that what they were doing on TikTok 2 weeks ago. I'm like, oh, you're right. I got to get out of here because it's too fun. It'll find all the things you love, whether it's charter boat fishing in Florida, fish after fish. You could watch it all day, and you're like, where did the
Yeah,
last
because
hour go?
as
I
you
can't
said,
do it.
we're just rabbit holes of rabbit holes, that's for sure. So yeah,
Yeah,
we are always a work in progress to try to keep that focus, that's for sure. Not only for us, but for our children. So
definitely.
I do ask that you're gonna have the courtesy to email us over the Colby Bryant commercial. I want to see that. So
Yeah, yeah. I'll send that over to you. Yeah,
send it over to us.
I
I'll
had
show
some
you
pretty
our
fun
kids.
ones.
They'll get a kick out of
So,
it.
so since this one's for parents, I don't show this one at the schools. Maybe the best day of work I ever had was I got to spend the afternoon at some mansion in Beverly Hills with Heidi Klum feeding me cheeseburgers for Carl's Jr. And they paid me for it. I'm like, I would have done this for free. I would have paid you
Imagine
for
what
this day.
mansions.
Yeah, so all because of basketball. So whatever that dream is that their kid has, or in their own entrepreneurial journey, keep hammering away, and anything could happen. You never know. You might spend a day getting hand-fed cheeseburgers by a supermodel.
That's
Well,
amazing.
Jesse, we loved
Thank you
having
so
you on.
much.
Keep up the good work with the youth and this dribbling, and congrats on moving. We're really impressed. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Awesome, you guys. Thanks for having me.